Johnny and I have been talking behind the scenes about
We're talking green screens.
We're talking some fabulous special effects and the like. You wait till I get you an Unreal Engine, young man. That's going to be the
Unreal
thing.
Engine? Is that like an improbability drive?
Yeah, sort of, except it's more personal.
Drop your shorts and bend over, Mr. Babar.
So it's it's like the infinite improbability drive. It might turn you into a cup of tea. Thank you. Hi, Devin, by the way. Hello. How are you? And
Moon River. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal
so
Sparks.
True.
All right, let's do this.
It's so true on so many fronts, and I don't even know where to begin. Can I? Yes, I do, actually. I take that back. First of all, I want to start by saying hello, chat room. Hello, Chicago. Hello, Johnny Million. How are you, my friend?
Hi. I'm good. How are you doing, man?
I'm holding in there. It's been a week. I'll tell you about it off the air,
Oh, really? You've had a week?
Oh, yeah, I've had a week. It's a personal week or whatever. I mean, I had a funeral the week before, last week, and then
everything was Hal's going to be late because he's traveling for a while there.
Yeah, and it's all, none of it is there are ancillary good things that come from it, and you always got to look for the silver lining, as it were.
Like you're glad that relative died kind of thing?
Hey!
No, I mean, you can be
I have an alibi.
Somebody died.
No, you can be, I would just say...
You can rejoice in their death and urinate on their grave.
No, not relatives. No. I don't have any relatives like that. I really don't.
All right. Well,
I have some
we just come from different families.
I have some old friends like that. And we both do.
Yeah, we do.
But
some
I think
are in the chat right now.
Quit it. The
Okay.
chat is full of lovely people. Shame on you.
I would never pee on anyone in the chat.
Well, there goes your OnlyFans.
Mega Worldwide.
Thanks. Right. So,
bringing it back.
I'm. You know what? I'm glad you've drawn the line, Johnny Million. I think that's good of you. Most people, I can't completely say that the possibility is 100% that would never happen, because again, virtual reality is a thing. I may not even know I'm doing it. I may be, some sort of, at this point, one of the studios may use a backwards facing in perpetuity and throughout the universe, clause in one of my previous contracts to make me an NPC in an all peeing game
amazing.
Yeah, I might end up being an extra in the Donald Trump biopic.
People in the chat are now coming up with like potential reasons on why I might choose to urinate on them.
Yeah.
But what if I'm on fire? What if I got stung by a jellyfish? What if I asked you to?
Right, exactly. What if I paid extra? I get it. No,
Yeah.
I know there's lots of possibilities out there, none of which are germane to our discussion. I'm glad we were able to derail this quickly, because I think it's
at least one person said, "Oh, this is an interesting start to the show."
It totally is. Well, I have to say that the regular, to bring it back home, because I got mad skills to pay the bills. To bring it back home, that's kind of what it feels like Trump tries to do on the Constitution every time he's arraigned, or he was fingerprinted a couple of days ago. He didn't.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And as we move forward, and as the seriousness of what's going on with him escalates, it is abundantly clear that he is closer to serving time on concurrent sentences on three different indictments at the same time.
And he's also finding ways to perpetuate the trouble that he's in.
Yes, by threatening violence upon the people who are simply doing their job.
I'll go after you. That's not how this works, man.
No, not at all. They had to get a protective order. Jack Smith asked the judge for a protective order this week because of that stuff from Donald Trump. And again, part of the issue around what Trump says.
Where were all
and
the
it's
protesters, by the way?
it was raining, you know what I mean? And they all have the
Oh, yeah,
same
that'll do it.
they all have the same delicate coif that he has. You know what I mean? Like they don't like to get their hair.
Raining.
Yeah. I mean, if
But
it
he's
look,
gonna save the country.
he is yeah. Did you see the size of the umbrella? Don't get me started. It was hilarious. I mean, when people allege that your hands are tall, don't use an umbrella that looks like you bought it at Disneyland in the giant section as a joke.
Yeah, it's like Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah, it was like it was in the Lilliputian, and you could buy giant everything here. Anyways, where's Melania is one of the questions in the chat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I stumbled upon a picture of her gazing longingly into the eyes of Justin Trudeau a couple days ago from back when that happened.
Oh, yes.
Oh boy, that was. Did I say tall hands or small hands? Small hands. Anyways, let's get to it.
Tall
Though.
hands, but I'm okay with it.
Did I? All right. I'm sorry. He's my issue with him
Never
is that he
apologize
fakes.
for tall hands.
No, you have tall hands. He has small hands, and he fakes his height. He says he's taller than he is. So I squished those together into one big fake. That was my bad. So yeah. So couple of things. We will deal with the Donald Trump stuff. We will get to that. However, this week the jobs report came out, and while it was quote unquote below expectations, the job report was still sound. And the fascinating part of the discussions around the economy and the words that I keep hearing around the economic crowd that was a year ago saying we're headed for a recession that we're already in, and we're on the verge of a recession that we're in the middle of. And all of those people have started using a word that is relatively new to the economic discussion in this country, which is disinflation. Disinflation is preferable to deflation. Deflation is the negative version of it. Disinflation is when things go back to normal. And deflation is what China's going through right now. Disinflation is what the United States is going through. And everyone is jealous. The European Union, they're all like, how can we get some of that hot disinflation action that the United States is doing? And the other phrase you keep hearing that has killed all the talk of, I thought inflation was transitory, is soft landing. Isn't that lovely? A soft landing. I saw an article this week on the economy that literally said, can an economic landing be too soft? I'm like, okay, simmer down. We just came out of COVID, and there in a world where I think we're all abundantly aware there are no guarantees. I've had one of those the 2 weeks have been full of those life has no guarantees moments. And I think we can all agree on that. But I find it ironic that most of the economics people that we talk about, that have been discussing this, from the absurd Maria Bartiromos of the world to the people who are allegedly legit at MarketWatch or Bloomberg or something like that, who can't afford not to tell the truth to their advisors because they're trying to be ahead of a curve. That those folks, all of them, to the person, have somehow gapped COVID in their memory. And yesterday there was an article that came out that addressed the sort of current state of the economy and how they were having a hard time finding bad words for it, considering what we've come through, without ever mentioning COVID or the fact that that's a reality. They were referencing that recently there was a shift in the economy, or a turn in quantitative easing versus tightening that we had not seen and since two other times, 2009 and 2020, literally the middle of 2020 and 2009. Now, I think we can all remember that 2009, while it was preceded by 2008 and the crash of it, did not have a pandemic. It was just, You could call it sort of an economic pandemic. It was the credit default swap virus made its way through the economic system and exploded on the scene and
in real trickle-down fashion.
Yes, and wrecked a lot of people, except those maniacs who maybe got tipped off or maybe understood it was coming and sat back with their cash on hand and waited for everybody to panic split or need to sell their stocks to pay their bills, and then swooped in and bought a bunch of stuff and made a bunch of money. The difference, of course, being is that this is the first time that E-Trade and other sources were available to the average citizen, and the retail investor was born. And that is now one of the primary aspects of the economic situation that is boggling the mind of Wall Street right now. And for lack of a better phrase, I would call this the democratization of the Dow. That now anybody who wants to be a citizen of the Dow in that regard, because we've said for a long time that the market, the Dow is not the economy. And that is true. Where it overlaps is in people whose IRAs or their pensions are invested, and that investment fluctuates due to how well the Dow does. So in real circumstances, older folks, grandparents who bail out parents or who pay for college for kids, or people who have built on their wealth, have paid their bills, aren't traveling much, and are now kind of getting their Social Security and have a little extra to spend and pass that on because they have whether it's a union pension or they have some other investments of their own, or they put into a Roth IRA or an IRA while they were a business, they can draw down from that and give it to their relatives. And that works its way into the economy. So in many ways, the market since the mid-90s, since like Roths really became a thing and became normal to business, it changed that the market was indeed more and more, increasingly, although to a smaller scale, part of the economy. Not like robber baron times of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, where only the uber rich owned any stock in anything, and it was an absurdity that you would ever think that you would have the chance to. Now, due to retail investors, there are 3 or 4 companies that ride on being memes. Most people know that AMC, the theater group, had a put on it from investors because they thought, well, after 2020, nobody's going to go back to the theater again. And so we'll just short the stock and watch it crash. We'll make some money on its demise. And a bunch of retail investors went, I like going to the movies, the hell with you, and bought a bunch of it, even though it wasn't worth a damn. And it wrecked. Huge, there were accounts that teetered on Lehman Brothers level devastation. Smaller hedge funds, smaller groups, these targeted investor groups.
For investing in AMC?
No, the opposite. For betting against AMC. To try and manipulate the stock because the pandemic had happened, because reality affected a business that did not deserve to crash. It was just part and parcel to the situation. And here rode in a bunch of teenagers and 20-somethings that had some, they were getting $3,000 a month from the government to some degree, and went, well, I still live at home and I can't go to work, and I'm not. There are no concerts to spend tickets on, and I bought all the video game add-ons in Call of Duty. I'm done. So I'll invest it. If I've got any extra money, you invest in a downturn, everything, and they're online watching videos about how to make it in the stock market because they got nothing else to do. While other people were QAnoning, these folks were learning how to be retail investors, and it worked. And between AMC and GameStop, they were driving Wall Street crazy. Why are these companies not crashing? Because these folks don't care if they're profitable. They like the company. They like going to the store. They like going to the movie.
I have been to both AMC and GameStop in the last couple of months.
And you have retail meme stock punks to thank for that. Yep. During the process of through Robinhood and other sources, E-Trades, and there's another app that some of them use that I'm not familiar with, but people just buying and selling.
There's someone in the chat named Spud who says, I invest in potatoes.
Well, you would, wouldn't you? That sounds.
I mean,
I think that sounds like insider trading. Now, when we come back, I want to.
I see.
Yes, when we come back, I want to discuss how, that's affecting more and more people, and that we are more in line. The stock market is becoming more in line with the general economy, which is a good thing. But at the same time, Americans seem to be all nervy and messed up about what our economy is doing, and oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. And I would like to give you a touch of perspective on the other side, if I may. And it, of course, deals with my understanding of China that goes further than most in my circle. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Megaworldwide. Now with 100% more Johnny Million. It's Johnny Million on twitch.tv. If you want to watch him play the guitar and make music, you can hear some of it during the break. This is Johnny's genius. And we love you guys. We'll be right back. Don't forget, patreon.com/Hal Sparks. Subscribe today. There we go.
Paul Young in the chat says, buy popcorn futures. Everybody's eating popcorn.
Totally. What I say. So this is...
Thank you for the super chats, Lisa, and then Boston Brian. I think there was another one.
Oh, thank you. Hold on. I still have to, I have my thing up, but if I'm looking at other stuff, I don't get to see it, even though it happens right next to my head. So, but the audience should know it, and they should applaud and thank those people. It's wonderful.
They do.
So
I have to call out, I'm wearing a baseball nerd shirt. This is
oh, dear.
Eddie Murray.
Uh-huh.
Who was a big part of the 1983
I just saw your belly button.
Orioles.
Uh-huh.
And it's the anniversary of them winning the World Series 40 years ago.
Oh, nice.
He will be at the game tonight.
Nerd alert.
Nerd alert.
60 seconds, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Did you hear him say 60 seconds?
Yes, I did.
Good.
Yeah, where is it? Okay, is it market? July jobs report. Yeah.
People do still remember Eddie Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Diana Turner's gifting memberships out there.
Oh, thank you. You can do that on Twitch and YouTube now. Just heads up. I don't know which site it's on, but that's lovely. Appreciate it. Let's see if I can. And I gotta see if this page will.
10 seconds.
Thank you. China. So good. It's so good. We know that it's so good. Johnny Million.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
And we mean it. Ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Million, Hal Sparks, the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. We're here every Saturday.
Boston Brian's giving out memberships. It's crazy in there.
Thank you guys so much for the support. We're in the process of buying a new computer. We got one that runs the stream, and it is a workhorse, and it's been fantastic. And I want to thank our dear friend in Chicago, Rob Glenn, for being our tech advisor, because I'm not a PC dude, helping us figure out all the right components. And
but Apple does not give a poo about streaming for some reason.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because the new M chips are great at it.
Oh, good.
It's the open source guys and the programmers that make the software that most people use for streaming that are on PC, because it's a traditionally PC gaming, PC gamers, PC streamers. That's how it works. So there's always been a down tier. That's changing immensely. But what the Mac will be for, the new one, is for us to move forward on my live stream and my channel, and with you as well. At some point, we'll work on it with actually put together videos along with the live stream. So the live stream is, this computer is dedicated to that. The other one will be so that we can actually have a production situation where I can make videos that are sort of like, breakdowns of some of these topics in a more concise way and a more planned out and organized way, video essays, as it were. So thanks to everybody who's supporting that, Venmo, what have you, blah, blah, blah. Thank you. The patrons, you're awesome. Now, this is one of the stories that I was kind of talking about, and I'm showing it online, but for those of us that are just on the radio, this is from Morningstar, but it's I think it's a replay of another article as far as the title goes. And it says, July jobs report suggests economy on track for, quote, immaculate disinflation. Fed seen ending rate hikes with solid but moderating job growth and easing price pressures. They have
That
literally...
sounds divine.
Now, it sounds great, especially when the alternative is runaway turkey-style inflation, and I mean the country, not the bird, and or the Republican methodology, which apparently, economically speaking, what the Republicans are suggesting is it's a rental anyways, so let's get out on the highway, gun it to 140 and throw it in reverse and see what happens. That's effectively the Trump economic policy. And I anybody wants to challenge me on that, knock yourself out, because the other option, I suppose, is that they want to do a bootlegger's turn and go back to where we were. That's the Donald Trump, Marianne Williamson overlap of 180 degrees. You know, they just want to do 100. We need to turn this economy around. Why? It's headed in the right direction finally. Exactly. It reminds me of that scene in Liar, Liar where he goes, objection. On what grounds? Because it's devastating to my case. Denied. Good call. So this is not...
Liar, Liar is an underrated classic.
It is. I have to say I prefer in some ways Yes Man, because it's based on...
It's
a little more...
I think I'm thinking Yes Man. That's the one where he he's in the... He won't say no to anything.
Yes.
And he agrees to go on that run.
Yes.
A photography run. And he
right,
falls
after
out
he's
of
been after he's been up all night at a rave because he couldn't say no to the rave, and he never had a Red Bull before.
He falls out of a car with like
I never had a Red Bull before. You ever had a Red Bull?
And,
yeah, right. So for those people that don't know, you should watch it. But the girl he falls for has a jogging and photography class she teaches in Griffith Park on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. And it's so LA. Like that, I have to say, if I had to sum up, everybody thinks LA is granola and hippie. It's not. It's that kind of idiocy when it's just weird. So
fantastic.
It's beautiful. So for the record, though, while that's happening, let me I don't know how to let's say, and I need to, I suppose, preface this by talking about not only economically what's going on in China and in Russia right now. So just a real let me put it this way. 14% drop in gas revenues in Russia in the last month. Overall 50% drop. And the reason is because that while they are selling oil on the cheap to a lot of countries that are avoiding the sanctions, namely India, America is giving India a pass to buy that oil on the cheap because they can sell the gas and make some money for their people. And even though it goes through there, technically speaking, you can't track, there's no DNA in oil to gas, so you don't know where it came from. So that you can't say, India, you can't sell gas because they have some oil too. So that's how they shuffle around it. But we're basically giving a wink and a nod to India while they do this. Now, still, even in spite of that, oil revenues are down in Russia. They've had a couple of spikes as the price goes up because the Saudis are trying to help them out, ease the pressure a little bit. That's why oil is at like $81 a barrel. They're trying to push it to 90 for one last hurrah before it collapses to 50. That's been the game for a while now. But, you know, what Europe gets natural gas from, from Russia, and that was their primary heating source. That's now gone. They're now getting it from Norway and Qatar. They got a bridge from the United States, but we have no interest in liquefying our natural gas long-term and sending it in boats over. It gets more costly. It's one of those situations that I I've had this argument.
I liquefied my natural gas when I had my colonoscopy.
Did they? Is it a pill or did they?
It is not a pill. It is a gallon of some sort of saline concoction.
Oh dear. Oh yes, I know. I saw that in the movie Ghost Town with Ricky Gervais. Right.
Drop your shorts and bend over, Mr. Babar.
So, anyways, the primary thing is that natural gas and gasoline, it kind of gets washed together in people's conversation about this stuff. I'm already on the break. We got to talk about this on the other side. Just wait. Just hang in there. I'll see you on the other side of this break because it's super important. We'll get to this because you don't know how good you've got it. Would you please just smile through the break, everybody who's listening to the sound of my voice? I adore you, and I need you to know this because if you're not, you're kind of a jerk. And I'll explain it on the other side. We'll be back. At some point, Johnny, you have to take your the beds for those instrumentals and send them to me and let me sing over them and make lyrics.
That one might have been a jam track, but definitely.
Right. I can do that too. I mean, you know me. I can sing Michael McDonald gibberish over all wave jazz, and therefore that I can turn that. Sometimes I can use that talent for good.
Yamo be there.
So
Lisa and I actually really enjoy when the Doobies come on with Michael McDonald.
Yes.
And
what's not to
it
like?
Sounds great, but she is so good at understanding lyrics, like she always has been. And,
Sure.
And I'll be like, okay, what did he just say there?
That's just rude.
Translate it for me. Oh my goodness, Margie E just super chatted out the yin yang. Thank you for coming to talk with the Tony Michaels podcast. Please come back soon.
I will absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Bless you. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for the support. I got to say, not only
if the Tony Michaels podcast wants to talk about farts, I'm there.
Yeah, Johnny Million would be great. You could, angry farts. They would have to be. It's Tony Michaels. They would have to be angry farts. Okay. Thank you, Chicago.
Don't fart angry.
Never fart angry. It's the weirdest version of Groundhog Day ever.
Don't fart angry.
Never fart.
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
All right, I'm going to show this on the live stream at infotainmentwars.com. We don't need the documents. We have everything memorized. And at twitch.tv/Hal Sparks and on Xter or whatever, and my Facebook page, which is, of course, the Hal Sparks Facebook page or whatever. And you can get there. Everybody wave in Facebook in the chat. And then... Let me show you, and I'll explain what people are seeing. Hold on. This is in China right now. They have had 500 millimeters of rainfall in 24 hours. Typhoon Duxbury has hit Beijing, and it is in the video that I'm showing online right now. It is moments before it wipes out people. It wipes out a bridge. In this video, there are people. There's a car that plunges off a cliff. There are multiple places trapped. There's footage earlier. I'll scroll it up and show that as well. That are just frankly the kind of mudslides we expect to see in Malaysia or something, or in Thailand after the tsunami. Or maybe around Fukushima Daiichi when the tsunami happened then. That's what it looks like. That's the level of flooding and devastation that is happening in Beijing right now. The capital. This is not, imagine this similar scenes happening on the level of Fukushima Daiichi in Washington, D.C. Now, largely, there's a place called... Zhuozhou, which is a city directly south of Beijing. And it's sort of a industrial suburb Lots of people live there. It's a former, farm area, as you might imagine. The entire outlying area is, and they have turned it into an industrial park / place to live because of their expansion fever that they've had for a while. South of that is south of Zhuozhou is a place called Xiong'an. Xiong'an, in some ways, is like the new capital. It's where a lot of the offices that they don't want to have in Beijing for safety reasons or whatever, or just paranoia, they have moved a lot of the governmental buildings south of there. And in distance, it's like the distance from Highland Park to downtown Chicago to, like, I don't know, what's the farthest past the south side? Like
Kankakee?
Yeah. It's like that kind of distance, equidistant. There's a chunk of land between it, and Zhuozhou is right in the center. And China has been building, people have heard this for a long time, 9,000 dams, throughout the country, and they have diverted every river in the country 17 times. And nobody checks up river with anybody else when they're doing this. You would think, we all hear about how communism and central planning are this kind of uniform authoritarian thing, when in reality, it just breaks down and nobody pays any attention. Well, at one point, they decided and the footage I'm on the screen right now, this is indeed Beijing. The floodwaters are up to the first floor, the most expensive and brand new hotel in Beijing, where yours truly has stayed the night once as part of my filming.
Oh.
It's like, they paid for it, so I didn't, whatever. But it was like, it's $900 to $2,000 a night to stay in this hotel.
What?
Yeah, $900 to $2,000 a night on every level. Like, insofar as I know, all the rooms cost that much. So, yeah. Just silly. And by the way, 95% empty all the time, like every other building I was in over there. It's super weird, right? They have to extrapolate.
They were giving you like the
inverse of a group discount
treatment.
Yes, right. It's all like cardboard. Like, well, yeah. It's tofu drag. What the construction there? It's crap. Like, even though it's supposed to be fancy, you could walk up and if you lean against the wall, you're always in danger of matrixing the walls, I would call it. How like they would always punch the concrete and it would always fly and shatter.
And then it turns into Inception. All the buildings turn upside down.
Yeah, they all fold. Right. Well, basically the entire first floor of that fancy pants hotel is full of muddy water right now. And the people who are in there are trapped.
Well, yeah.
There is nowhere to go. They don't have rafts coming out of there. There are people trying to block where the water is flowing down these roads that I'm showing on screen right now. But here's the thing. To get rid of the water in Beijing that has been accumulating, they are diverting it by allowing runoff on a couple of dams south of the city. Because the water's backed up, and so this is how they're going to release it. What that has resulted.
I bet that runoff is going to bode well for the people who depend on that water for living,
or people who don't have gills, because downstream from those two dams is a lot of human beings living in smaller 3-story buildings. Beijing has a bunch of tall buildings. Yes. And what has happened is they have let the water that was in Beijing to protect Beijing loose through these dams that effectively just flood these cities, are flooding Zhuozhou downstream, which to let everybody, to give everybody kind of a sense of what that would be like. It's like if DC, there was a typhoon and all of a sudden the river around DC flooded and it was moving up and it was in the Capitol. It was like up the steps of the Capitol, and they were erecting barriers around the White House to keep the water out, and it was growing, and it got up to 6 feet. And instead of releasing it out to the sea or running pumps or something like that into the river right there. What they decide to do is open a series of like parking garage gates or whatever in Arlington and allow like an off-ramp that had been closed and allow that water to simply flood into schools and homes and bridges and businesses with no warning. Let me say that again. With no warning. Not, oh God, the Capitol's flooding. We've got to release this water. The water's coming. Please evacuate. Which is what you would do even if you weren't controlling it. You knew the water was eventually going to go that way. They just simply released the water and didn't tell anybody downstream. And it is raging
this is the way
water.
Libertarians want it.
Yeah, this is libertarian governing at its best.
Yep.
This is how, Johnny, this is how people learn the value of real estate. Location. You know, how are you going to know what a good location is if you haven't been drowned in muddy water by your government's inaction or overt action?
Relative.
Yeah. So while we are discussing, in all seriousness, the immaculate disinflation and the soft landing of the U.S. economy and the very real issues that people have with student debt and other stuff and the remedies for that. And this sort of argument that the people who you're arguing about, you know, how you can disperse student debt and how you go about it are your violent enemy. I would like to give you a sense of perspective that you are arguing long-term economics. You are not in a violent emergency. There is not torrents of muddy water rushing towards you. And anybody who tells you that you are wants you to overreact or panic or give up. And meanwhile, your fellow human beings in China are being swept under murky, opaque, dirty water, toxic as hell as well, and being swept away in it. And I can't, like, this one's hard for me to even articulate because I have friends in Beijing and I have friends in Shanghai and I have friends in Chengdu and Dongxian and the government in Beijing. Oh, look, that's the actual hotel I stayed at, Johnny Million.
Wow.
Yep. The government in Beijing is saying 2 people have died. 2.
Yeah, that sounds right.
200 people were on the bridge that got swept away. 200. The government is saying 2 people have died. Now, if you use that as your metric, how many people do you think died of COVID?
Right.
So, do we have problems in the United States? Absolutely. Do we need to focus on them and work very hard, diligently to come up with solutions for them? You betcha. Is it on the scale of what's happening to our fellow human beings over there? No, it isn't.
No.
And the next big thing that's going to follow on this is if they don't have a bout of malaria because of mosquitoes and standing water.
At best.
At best. Because we can at least treat that. God knows, you know, what other strains of, of malaria they've been messing around with. God knows. Like, they just... The government just does not care about this stuff. But even beyond that, the famine that will follow on, because a lot of the areas that are being flooded in the north are also their farmland. And China only has 9% of the arable land on the planet, while they have 1/6 of the population, allegedly. They import 80% of their food and 85% of their energy. With all their coal plants, with all that stuff that they're building, they still... And so Yes. Do we need to solve the student debt crisis? Absolutely. Does it hold people back from their dreams? Sure. Can we find multiple remedies where it might not be one singular solution, but you have 5 different options, which is the Biden plan that's working, by the way, helping the vast majority of people? Does it bother you when the roads are backed up or you have traffic because they're working on the roads around you, because infrastructure money is starting to flow finally in this country, and they're going to be rebuilding every airport in the country?
It's so hard to be angry at road construction right now.
Yep. And why does it take so long? Why does it take so long? Why does it take 3 months? Shouldn't they be able to do this much quicker? Yeah, if it's an emergency and they're just rebuilding what was there, but if they have to divert or change anything or change the ground underneath something because the measurements came that this area is sinking and the side of the bridge is lowering and blah, 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 that you want them to take all the time they need. If somebody's doing some graft or somebody's paying under the table to make this job go longer or whatever, they will find their way to the inside of a courtroom, hopefully eventually, and do some jail time or pay a fine. But it beats the alternative where you whip stuff together as fast as the government wants it and it falls apart under your feet at the first sign of trouble. I know without knowing, because I can't know. I do not have the details. I know that either I have lost a friend or two in China in the last 3 years because I don't hear from them anymore. And it could simply be the luckiest situation is that their government just does not allow them to contact the outside world. That's the best case scenario.
Which
on the worst end,
a nightmare.
Yeah, right. On the worst end, they have died or their family has been wiped out, so much so that they had to relocate to rural China and pick up their, and provide, throw whatever dreams or ideas they had, out the window. And that's that. That's your life now. You just got to go out there and make sure this little hubble that they have, it will survive.
Right.
Now, we talk a lot about the Ukraine war and the devastation that goes around that. And we're pretty good at reminding everybody of the tough parts of that. But I want to say for the record, it's heartbreaking to know that while we are coming to the rescue of the Ukrainians and trying to remedy this situation, no one is coming to the rescue of the Chinese citizens who are downstream from this horror right now. Least of all, their own government.
Yeah.
And look, natural disasters are one thing. This is a man-made disaster. This did not have to happen. And the waters are rising in Hebei. If you don't know where Hebei is, you've heard about it a bunch because that's where Wuhan is. We'll be back. Yeah, that's Fujian. That's where the typhoon made. Look at that crane. That's the car that drives off the. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Oh, fuck, that's terrifying. It's the subway entrance in Beijing. That's the wind blowing by. That's the typhoon wind. That goes down into the into the tunnels themselves, just filling with water. Good God. And this girl, this is part of the thing. This girl was getting married, and they were rushing the wedding because the church is filling with water.
Do you take the impression?
Yeah, and it hit Taiwan as well, but you'll find that the Taiwanese are handling a lot better. I know people are shocked. Yeah, that's the Fujian footage. Jesus. Yeah, so this is the vehicle wreckage. These are the cars. These are on the road. These are vehicles that were on the road.
That we have this footage at all.
Oh yeah.
Social media is why we have this footage.
Totally. Because and it gets out immediately, and then the Chinese government shuts this stuff down. Yeah. There's one piece of footage, and I'm trying to find it, where the water actually, like, somebody's there when the water starts coming. Yeah, this is one of them, I think.
Back in 15.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God, look at that. I don't know if you can see that, Johnny Million, but that road getting wiped out.
Attention. Stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So in all seriousness, much love to everybody in and around the Beijing area and Fujian and in Hebei province and all the people who are affected by this, because I think we all go back to Fukushima Daiichi or the Phuket tsunami. I had a former manager of mine who was vacationing in Phuket when that happened, and he and his friends were on the road going to the beach. They were walking down the road going to the beach, and there were elephants in the area that were kind of part of, you could do like little elephant rides on the beach sometimes. And one of them had broken away and was running up the hill. And there was this, they felt like, was that an earthquake? Like, how far away was that? They didn't quite get a grip on whether they were because I think they'd been, quite frankly, imbibing because it's that kind of a holiday. And they just turned and ran up the hill, followed the elephant, essentially. And I think if you're not talking about the Republican Party, most of the time that's a good idea. Follow the elephant. The elephant knew. Yeah. Wow, Victoria Sanders says her psychiatrist died in that one. Jesus. Man. And then, yes, Philip Bittner will be joining us in about 10 minutes from Ukraine, and we'll catch up on what's going on there. Lots of news from Ukraine. And a lot of it has to do with Russia getting very nervous about losing Crimea in the very near future. It's fascinating. And they had this plan, it seems, to engage Africa initially in this kind of pushback on the West while the grain deal was still in existence. And what do you know? Turns out that Africa gets most of the grain, and once they stopped, Africa got mad, and then they started remembering, oh yeah, you're the guys that send the Wagner group down here to murder everybody and basically extort all the resources out of the area. You do everything that the West gets accused of nonstop, because somehow it's interesting that if you look at political moves and Wagner mercenary movements in the world, when they do awful in Africa or in the Middle East or in Asia, suddenly they're the West. Because they're white is the idea. It's because West is white and white is West, and so while they're doing that stuff, they're the West. The minute we push back on it, they're no longer part of Europe. We're not Europe. We're our own thing. But this is Eastern Sino-Russian relationships are a real thing. Now, and there's another piece of news I want to ask Philip about when he comes on, which is the fact that the Russians detained, I think, 5 Chinese nationals at the border and questioned them for hours. And the embassy was not happy. So there's two possible. I have 2 theories about how that could go. Either the Russians made a huge mistake or the Chinese made a huge mistake. Either way, neither of them trust each other, which I think is is crucial to the lie that we've been told about how well they're getting along these days. Also, somebody in the chat was saying that the umbrella that Trump was carrying was a proper golf umbrella. Maybe so, but he wasn't on a golf course. He was on a tarmac. He was in a car. Get a normal umbrella. I'm sorry. These are legit clown shoes I'm wearing. But if you see me at a funeral wearing them, yeah, it's inappropriate. It would look wrong. I'm just saying. That said, we will cover that when he comes back in. But the issues, that we're going to deal with in terms of normalization of China with China and I guess the U.S. relationship. While there's been this ongoing talk about Beijing owns Biden and his Beijing Biden and all that kind of stuff. And if that were true, we would be rushing to help, and they would be welcoming that in a heartbeat. They aren't, and we aren't. And there's the obvious reason for that is because A, they're still in the middle of it, and B, they don't trust us and we don't trust them.
Right.
Two big things have happened while this is going on. One is, and by the way, Beijing is going to accuse the United States of having a typhoon steering ray. Trust me on this. Within weeks, because this typhoon made a weird 90-degree turn, but it clipped Taiwan in the process. So it's a hard argument to make because we like Taiwan. But ultimately, China's issue is going to be going forward this decoupling versus de-risking and deleveraging conversation that the Biden administration and Antony Blinken have been talking about. We're not decoupling from China, we're de-risking and deleveraging. Well, leveraging means having your money in there, and de-risking means whatever you have an issue as far as whether the investments are going to go south and you won't make money on your investments, or they won't be worthwhile, or you don't trust the person and they're going to steal from you. Either way, put those two things together, that's decoupling. And while we are decoupling from the world's factory floor, we are still having, effectively, immaculate disinflation. Bidenomics is very real, and it's apparently working like a charm. And Bloomberg has an article, and I'm going to put this up as well that people are looking at, which I think sums up everything. Bidenomics actually worked, but voters aren't buying it. Public perceptions haven't caught up with improving economic conditions, and there is still anxiety about inflation. Okay, first of all, you're only talking to the people who watch the stuff where, anxiety sells. If it bleeds, it leads, and that's true economically. The other thing is that by saying any problems are left over, that no one is solving any problems, is classic TYT logic, but it's also one of the ways you weaponize people against their own government. So there's a ton of that online right now. Half the people, I'm here to tell you, if you're still on Xter, half the people you're talking to on there that are angry, disenfranchised Americans who don't feel heard are not Americans at all. Period. End of story. Unless you know somebody, now is the time to really question who you're talking to online. And I don't care if they've had an account for 10 years or 10 months or 2 months. That's the flood right now. It has become a crap posting site for every foreign influence campaign that's out there. And it's the only way they can make money besides sex trafficking ads that run nonstop on everything on there now. That said, inflation is receding. Unemployment is at or near record lows, and growth continues at a solid pace. Americans are deeply pessimistic about the economy. Folks, I would say for all the conversations people have had about privilege over these last few years, it is the very height of privilege to not recognize that there are gradations, levels, degrees of problems in the world. And there are your fellow Americans, some of them are going through very acute problems. My uncle has been in the hospital, and it's been a tooth pull for the whole family, and it's terrible for him and all that kind of stuff. We're dealing with a very real thing, so maybe I'm closer to this kind of perspective talk than I have been, if that hadn't happened. I have another friend.
Is that the one that your mom was talking about when we went out?
Yep. And another friend of mine has the big C, unfortunately. Hopefully they caught it early enough.
That was cotton candy.
Nope, and that was this week. So that I found that out. So I want to say that not only as Democrats, especially, not only is it a good idea to tout the Bidenomics and the successes that this administration is doing and the competency of our government right now that is unique compared to the previous 4 years entirely, but on top of that, there's a responsibility to do it. To stop taking crap about stuff you're lucky is going our way, even in the most, rudimentary ways. The fact that we have infrastructure being built as Russia is bombing the infrastructure of Ukraine out of existence and hitting civilian buildings, and Beijing is just letting people's homes get washed away.
Oh, we're right at noon, Hal.
We are. We got to go. We'll be back right after this. Philip Ittner is waiting in the wings. Count your blessings during the break. I'm dead serious. I mean this. Yep. I'm wagging a finger from a position of reality. We'll be back. Yeah. And hold on one second. Let me bring in Phil. There we go.
We'll be right back.
All right. Thank you for muting your microphone. I appreciate it. And I'll bring in Phil. Give me 1 second. Hi, chat room. I know I get on that diatribe. I appreciate you hearing me out on it. But I find it heartbreaking and aggravating. I really do. There he is. Hey, Phil.
Hey.
Good to see you, brother. Let me put this up on here. Okay, and we're gonna.
I only caught the tail end of that. What got you fired up?
A myriad of things, but the typhoon hit China, and and the government said 2 people died, and like 200 people got murdered on one bridge. Yeah. And I have friends there. I have friends in those cities, and they're what this is. You can probably understand this more than anybody I could talk to right now. But you have people you've lost people close to you in this war over the last bit because they were where a lot of this shit went down. Mm-hmm. And it's it's rough sometimes. Like I don't like I do not I'm long suffering. I can suffer fools gladly pretty easily, I got to say. I can deal with a lot of ridiculousness. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, when we boil it down to life and death, no. I have the thickest, easiest red lines in the world because I reach them and I just go, that's where we stop. Fuck that. And I'm getting all of my swearing out before we go back on the air. But
is it that they're just denying the reality of it, or is it
two things? And I covered it on the air, so the chat knows about this. But on the one hand, they're denying the reality, and they always do that. It's no big deal, and it's fine or whatever. But on the other hand, they are diverting the waters out of Beijing into populated areas, and they're not warning people that the water's coming. It's a man-made disaster. It's on purpose. I mean, it just. I can't imagine. Yep. I can imagine being in a situation where you're like, we're in a submarine. Everybody who's on level A of the submarine is going to live if we save the submarine. But if we save the submarine, everybody on level B is going to die because the water's got to go somewhere and we only have one choice. And if we die up here, nobody lives. So the water's got to go below and those guys have to die. That's a decision that people have had to make in the world, right? That happens. That's to me, that's the presidency. When I make a decision, I go, who do I trust to make that decision? Yeah, the trolley problem, but I like this is my own analogy. And it goes even beyond the if you divert it one way, it kills one person. If you divert it the other way, it kills 5 people. What do you choose? Is it about volume or is it about individual life? Or do you just avoid it and just let it crash and everybody on the trolley dies? Right? That's the thing. So in this particular instance, they don't have to do that. You could tell everybody in the bottom to get to the top, and they aren't. That's the part that like sets my skin on fire. Because god damn, like you could they could live.
Will do that,
right? Yes, exactly. That's why you don't let somebody like Trump in power, because that's what he wants to do.
Do you remember the very beginning? Do you remember the very beginning of President Putin's reign? There was a situation where a submarine went down in the Arctic, and there were still men alive on the sub. But because Putin had gone and done this whole thing about sovereign, his Russian supremacy and rising to a great power status, he was too embarrassed to take aid from a NATO country, including from the UK, which has Scotland, which has deep sea things because of their oil platforms, and they could have saved lives. So, that kind of mentality.
It is exactly that situation. It is precisely that situation, because that is what's happening there. That they're only not saying, thank you. They're only not telling people this
Chicago
because of face.
Yeah,
it's fuck, man.
Human lives.
All right, I'll be fine. I'm done swearing. I'll be all right. Yeah. So thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Hi. We'll get to you in the catch up in a second.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back to the show, and of course it's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. We got 100% more Johnny Million this week, and I appreciate it, and it's lovely, and I'm always glad to have him. And on top of that, we have Philip Ittner joining us from Ukraine, not only to give us the update from there, his experience. We like to check in on him because we're his mother now. Everybody in the chat room is clearly his mother, because we all worry about you all the time. And then secondarily, because I think you uniquely understand some of the stuff that I've been dealing with some of my friends in China who are, effectively, I cannot communicate with them. I don't know where they are or how they are or if they are anymore. And I think you understand that incredibly well. And you can see that as we deal with this ongoing battle. Now, a lot of stuff has happened. Like, we'll talk a little bit about the Saudis. We'll talk about there were the newest piece, and I saw this. Maybe you know more about this. I hope so. The 2 ships that were sunk, the Russian ships that got sunk. Catch us up on that and how you are right out of the gate, because I'm curious about a lot of that.
Well, we had it's a hot day today, so I'm a little drained from the heat, but
the schwitzing,
schwitzing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was actually 2 ships that sank. There were 2 ships that were struck by basically, in essence, drone boats, drone torpedoes.
Right.
These things are increasingly being used effectively, and they hit a military frigate kind of size capital ship.
Yeah,
and at first, of course, the Russians denied it, much like the Chinese are denying theirs. They're flooding, but just stick your head in the sand and pretend it's not happening, and maybe people believe you. But unfortunately, we have things called cameras nowadays. Everybody's got a camera phone. So at first they denied it, but then pictures came out of this frigate-sized class ship listing to I guess that would be to port. And being dragged back in. So, and then video was released. We don't know by whom, but video was released of the actual drone as it approached the hull of the ship. And then subsequently, there was also a oil ship, I believe it was, a transport ship, civilian transport ship that was hit, Russian flying under a Russian flag. Obviously, the Russians went ballistic about that, no pun intended. But it's just and also now we're hearing reports of areas of Crimea that are falling under potential artillery, fire. So they're putting pressure on the entire eastern edge of the Black Sea, or at least that kind of northeastern edge of the Black Sea.
Right.
And that's not going to play well back in the provinces in Russia.
Right.
I think
this
that's
is the tanker
ship you're bringing up there. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is an aerial shot. I couldn't find it quickly, but there's an aerial shot of it leaking. It's got a sizable hole in it. The other part is, and this is where this is apparently from the video you were talking about. This is the footage of the hit. The singular, a frame or two of it, as it were. From where they said they weren't, and then they said they were. And then this is the other ship that was disabled in the Black Sea Fleet. Now that's the one you were talking about who's leaning. That's more than a lean
ship. That's
the military ship.
Heavily listing. Yeah.
Oof,
I saw a thing from former Admiral Stafridis, who tweeted out about this. He was like, yeah, ships aren't supposed to do that, and I know because I'm an admiral.
Right.
That thing got hit hard. Hit hard, and that's a military ship that should be protected.
In theory.
So this, in theory, exactly. So this drone technology that the Ukrainians have developed,
thanks, Eileen.
This naval, is pretty impressive. And especially since, Ukraine doesn't have a navy. Ukraine has a coast guard.
Right.
They don't have a navy. And they're still
That's rough.
The Russian Navy.
Yeah. That part is a constant source of, I guess, amusement and amazement the world over. But, increasingly, there's an element of it being in the Black Sea. Your ships are kind of trapped there. This is not like the open sea where you can fall back and move to deeper waters, and the other Navy or whoever you're working with, in this case a Coast Guard, would not have ships that can refuel in deep water or whatever. So that's the whole theory, is that you pull far enough back, you can hit those things in open water. But if they pull back far enough, they're either back in Russia, and then they're firing from Russia, and that opens up a whole thing because they're firing from Sochi, essentially. Or they're firing from Turkish waters or international waters, in which case that's a violation. So they're really threading a needle.
Well, and I'm not particularly good at naval matters. I'm pretty much, a guy who's spent his time either in air reconnaissance, kind of air support, or on the
situations,
ground. But
right.
I've spent a little bit of my time in naval atmosphere, and I have people who are naval officers, friends of mine. And the other aspect of it is that normally you would have a screen out. You would go in fleet formation. So you would have ships but you're absolutely right. In the Black Sea, you don't have the space to have flotillas and like smaller ships running operations around your larger capital ships. And plus the fact it was at port. This is another important point to make, is this was in Novorossiysk, and Novorossiysk was thought to be out of the range of what the Ukrainians could hit, what these drones could hit. So that was another aspect to it, is they didn't see it coming. They were just sat at port, and the Ukrainians showed them that they can reach out and touch somebody.
Right.
Which is a lesson that the Russians are continually learning.
Yeah, or not learning, or refusing to learn.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, that brings us to this, is that after the Kerch Bridge strike, the focus was really on regular traffic, the fact that a chunk of it had fallen and all that. kind of stuff. But new satellite photos show that the railway part of it was struck as well from the outside, meaning that there were either 2 tiers of explosions or one, maybe Russia firing on something trying to stop the thing that hit the other part of the bridge actually hit their own bridge, which we can't rule out. But this is, according to this, it says a second strike by Ukraine last month on the strategically vital Kerch Strait Bridge damaged its crucial railway. Contrary to Russian claims, the attack affected only the roadway spans of the structure. Satellite photos obtained by Newsweek reveal. There's a dent in that thing. That has moved. And again, it's one thing to be on a passenger train heading down a track that's that far out of whack. Imagine being on a train full of explosives headed towards a rough spot. Good Lord, and fuel, because they're stacking everything, which is just lunacy. So, this is not working out well.
No,
but
I mean, the bridge is one thing. There's the possibility of them cutting off the land bridge as well. Things are going very slow at the front, but they're still progressing, and there's some talk of them, having gotten through to past the kind of laid defenses of mines and the dragon's teeth and other kind of formations that they built. But the fighting stage of this summer is not over by a long shot. The weather is still going to be good for at least another 2 months. And if they can continue to take 5 miles one day, 7 miles the next day, maybe you get a slow day and you get 3 miles, they're going to get to a place where now all along, as you know, as people who have been listening to what I've been saying, from what my sources in the Ukrainian military are telling me, is that this is going to be this kind of like, the entire line moves slow and steady. You just don't, you don't do anything crazy. You don't strike out wildly. But if they get to a place, I suspect if they get to a place where they're like 30 kilometers or, 20 miles from the sea, they might try and get a strikeout, because really what they need to do this summer, in my opinion, not just in my opinion, but a lot of people that I talk to, and get to the sea, get to the sea, get to the sea, break their land bridge, and then try and expand and hold that as much as possible. But now, whether or not that's striking south towards the sea in a town called Melitopol, which would put their artillery within radius of a lot of Crimea, including the naval facilities at Sevastopol. That would be a huge psychological thing. It would send a message that it's very possible that Russia might lose Crimea, and that is going to have shockwaves that are going to be enormous. Now, they could also go due east and go to Mariupol, but that's going to be a hard thing to get to. But we'll have to see. But the important thing is get to the sea, and they're moving.
Right. Absolutely. I'm showing on screen right now. We're talking about this, the strike from July 17th on the Kerch Bridge, which has always been a part of this conversation, and being able to refuel and regroup and rearm people in the Crimean Peninsula. That's the primary way you're gonna do that, because the rest of the railway on the land is used for all the other forces. This was your back end to protect Crimea and buttress it. The rail is impassable, according to Newsweek, and we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It says the movement of freight trains across the bridge is no longer possible. It's pretty straightforward. That's pretty direct. And looking at an up-close picture of it, which I'm showing at infotainmentwars.com and at twitch.tv/HalSparks, and on our Facebook page, you can see that's not a. I'll pass. You know what? I'll walk. Thanks very much. Yeah, but nobody's getting on that train anytime soon, even if Rebecca De Mornay is on it. We'll be back. It's Chicago, a little risky business reference. Is okay. Yeah. And this, by the way, this one that
on the L.
Yeah. Again, pivotal moments in sexual development.
Oh, yeah.
Big shame for Russia that a country with a fleet loses to a country without a fleet. Expert. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. But it does, like I said, they're trapped in the Black Sea. It is, a sea fleet with friends south of them at the bottom edge of whatever that sea is. You can patrol that area with the Coast Guard because you can refuel off their ships if you run into trouble, or you can have somebody tow you back. Yeah. But in open water, the Russians would have an open, they would have the ability to pull back farther than the Ukrainians could go without refueling.
Yeah, what does Ukraine need with a navy?
Right.
They
exactly.
don't have any aspirations on the global stage. They don't need to be protecting shipping lanes.
Nope. We'll take care of that for them.
This is a unique situation when it comes to the shipping lanes right now. It's a unique situation, but generally they do not need a navy.
No.
They don't need
No.
So these drones are fantastic. These drones.
Oh yes, the boat drones.
They're doing the job.
Boats and drones. Boats and
power.
drones. I don't know why I think of Step Brothers from Boats and Drones. Boats and drones. Oh, not drones. Never mind. Anyways, have you seen Step Brothers? You ever seen it?
I adore that movie.
Yeah,
it's the first movie I ever bought.
Really?
Digitally. Yeah,
really?
Like I've got VHSs, but that was the one I was like, well, I need to see this again and have it with me all the time.
Right.
We're back.
That's
in
fascinating. Thank you.
Boats and hose.
Boats and hose. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I got one more thing I'll bring up in here, and then I'm going to announce questions, Johnny. So if you got questions, we'll start. I know I'm only on 1 day a week. I get it. I'm gonna have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow, and a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow, and a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
I know words. I have the best.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, so let's get into the questions from the chat room because I know they have a lot of them, Johnny Million. You've been farming them diligently while we've been discussing the other stuff that makes me enraged. What do we have first?
All right, so my first question is from Ed's 3D Tech. Can you ask about the Crimean bridge standing? Someone said it had some issues with lightning last night.
There were some reports of some flashes of something. That there was illumination on kind of the horizon towards the bridge. I did not see any follow-up information saying that was an actual strike. I think if they hit it again, we'd be hearing all over the place about it. So I don't know what exactly that could have been.
Maybe they were welding.
Yeah, I saw. Well, I mean,
I working on it.
I don't like to speculate about stuff, but something was illuminating the horizon, and I don't think it was another missile strike because by now we would have definitely heard a whole bunch of oh my God, they hit it again.
Right.
So it could have been any number of different things.
Right.
But look, that bridge is coming down. That bridge is coming down, or it's going to be made unusable on a permanent level. So.
Oh, no doubt. So, well, let's grab the next one because I will comment and
this one's from Connie Kelly. Ask Philip how Ukraine feels about Poland putting attack helicopters on the Belarus border and the Israelis running the Russian blockage and leading 4 ships of grain out into open water.
Yeah, the whole thing out in Poland and Belarus is becoming a little bit contentious. There's some how do I put this? There's some disagreements between Poland and Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I say I don't want to play it up, but I also don't want to play it down because there's such a really difficult history when it comes to Poland and Ukraine. They've had tensions before, and tensions. They've gone to war against one another
right.
in the past, and in addition to that, it's something that Russia loves in general, but has tried in this conflict to really exacerbate and drive a wedge between Poland and Ukraine. It's so far it's not working. Now the whole situation with Belarus is problematic because, of course, we have reports that a couple of Belarusian helicopters, I want to say about 36 hours ago, made a quick incursion into Polish airspace, and there's a lot of talk about what that meant and what Poland's response needs to be. Because at some point we start talking about Article 5 and things get crazy.
Right. Well, now that's the question. So Wagner, while Prigozhin's version of Wagner is its own thing now, or he's not running or whatever, but they've set up in Belarus. Is this the Belarusian Wagner and therefore not the Russian Wagner? Because the Russian Wagner is now part of the government. He has admitted, like Putin has admitted that this is, I guess, that they're just an arm. They're like the Navy SEALs as far as he's concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that they're contracted employees of the Russians and what have you. Look,
Mm-hmm.
I think if Wagner goes into Poland under any auspices,
right,
NATO is just going to go, yeah, call them what you want. There's still, we're still going to hold you responsible for coming into a NATO member state.
Right.
So
little green men again.
I don't think that holds it. Yeah, if they try a little green men scenario with Poland, it ain't going to work. There's no way. So, look, that whole axis of things, Poland, Belarus, and Ukraine, there are going to be those who are going to try and there are going to be those. The Russians are going to try and use that as a wedge between Ukraine and NATO and Poland. They do it all the time. Divide and conquer. Ain't going to work this time. Absolutely not going to work.
Right.
The Poles are too privy to it. NATO is too privy to it, and it's not the Donbass. It's a NATO member state that we're talking about here. So there's no way that little green men are just going to show up inside Poland and what they're going to go. Well, it's a legitimate. This is a Polish separatist movement or something like that. No way. So I wouldn't lose any sleep over what's happening in Belarus, Poland, and Ukraine. That sector.
Yeah, it's I have to say that part of it just sounds silly. It's like that they actually think that's gonna, I don't know. I like that. That sounds like intentional noise. That sounds like old-fashioned GRU, saber rattly, that kind of stuff to distract and go, the war's going to spread. Give people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others ammunition to say, see, this is spilling out. It's going to turn into World War III. Like, that's the argument, I think. That's what because they don't have to do anything. They just have to scare the fertilizer out of everybody.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's a history there, too. So,
Right. We got 3 more minutes before the break. Do you want to grab another question?
Yeah, here's one from Nick Rich 56. Healthcare in Ukraine, any happening?
Well, I mean, it's functioning about as normal as it has. I mean, there's been no, to my knowledge, any issue there. I've had to go in for some medical treatment during the year, just a little checkup, because I was having some sinus problems, and I didn't have any problem at all. Got in, got cared for.
You had that outpatient beard transplant.
No, but here's the thing, though. In all seriousness, all I did was rock up and say, "Hey, my ear is hurting," and they were like, "Right this way. Take a look. Here's some drops, in and out in about an hour and a half." Tops, and didn't have to pay hardly anything. So socialized medicine,
not so bad. Yep, agreed.
Not so bad.
Well, it does help when the United States, ironically, is picking up the tab for a lot of things too. It helps it stay afloat in a way that it didn't function quite under Poroshenko. But that said, yes.
But what did work previously and what has worked is their level of care. They're very good on like day-to-day care, like anything.
Great.
You know, like I got a busted finger. You know, patch it up, on you go, out the door.
Right.
You know, more extravagant stuff, then you start to see a difference maybe between what you could get at Cedar Sinai as opposed to what you could get here. So,
right.
But it's a strong medical system here. I'm going to have a vlog coming out soon about mental health, as opposed to the general health care, but mental health care, given the circumstances. And I hope to have that out by Sunday, at the latest Monday.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, we only got a minute left, so I have a couple of my own. Yeah, I've got my one. Okay. I have my own questions, and we'll deal with those on the other side of the break. But I want to remind everybody to follow Itner Philip on X or whatever. I cannot. All right, I can't pronounce Twitter with the X and the I because I use the Xi Jinping version of the pronunciation of the X, and I just attach it to Itter, and so draw your own conclusions. I just can't say it on the air. But I think as a crap posting site, that's the perfect name for it. And I think what most people do right now is exit, as it were. A lot of people are exiting in the true sense and moving to other sites. And again, once the Fediverse shows up, then you'll really have the ability for everybody to sort of compete on a level playing field, social media style, because then you'll be in it. You'll be able to contact people on all other sites. It won't be about aggregating sites, and it will be about features. And that's how it should be. Because imagine a telephone where you can only call people with the same model telephone. That's ridiculous. Right now, social media-wise, that's what you've got. The Fediverse version of thing, or the open, trading social media system platforms which are happening, will broaden everything out and allow it to be a competition on quality, not, all the quantity is over here. We'll be back right after this with Philip Itner. More Ukraine updates and your questions at infotainmentwars.com and at twitch.tv/HalSparks. Don't forget to subscribe and support us through patreon.com/HalSparks. We'll be back right after this. It's so exciting. Okay.
An enormous, really an enormous.
And God bless the United States.
The Mueller report, I wish, covered the oranges.
I hate citrus.
Phil's face.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I mean.
Yeah.
Combat infantrymen to be a sanctuary. 10,000 known or suspected
Did he say
gang
sanctuary?
members.
He said
sanctuary. Sanctuary.
Yes, he said sanctuary. And he tried to bail out in the middle, and like his ego wouldn't let him.
Sanctuary.
Oh, that's awful. That's awful.
Yesterday's a hard word for me.
Oh, man. That idiot is our president.
Oh, you want to talk about how he treats the vets?
They sacrifice every day for the furniture, future.
I thought his thing at the World War I cemetery should have absolutely
ended everything, right?
They sacrifice every day for the furniture, future.
Still supports Trump after that disgusting.
Yeah, they're losers. Basically.
Someone in chat pointed out that he said sanctuary at the State of the Union.
Yes, he did.
To be a sanctuary. The diversity lottery. Despite these obstacles, Karen.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Where we, in the upcoming campaign season, we'll be fighting for Iowa values. Or as Donald Trump likes to say...
Fighting for Iowa values.
So, I'm Hal Sparks. And Johnny Million is still with me, as is Philip Itner. And we got more questions from the chat for Phil about what's going on over there. And I'll try not to interject too much.
Got a question from Grumpy Cat. Please ask Philip what he knows about the recent Moscow skyscraper hit by drone attack.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that on Wednesday a little bit, but
thanks. Thanks for bringing that up. So several drone attacks into Moscow. A couple were struck down, but a couple got through. Now, not only did they get through, but they were able to strike at this very glass and steel high-rise building in a section of Moscow where they have ministry offices. So this struck a building that was a completely legitimate target. At first, there was hopes. What kind of bothered me about this, and we talked about this a little bit on Wednesday, you and I, Hal, is the fact that the UN, there was an undersecretary or something in the UN that just was clutching at pearls and going, oh, the striking of Moscow has to stop. Ukraine has to stop this. This is so provocative. To which our response here in Kiev was, we have just been through a year and a half where on the daily we are getting Russian missiles and drones heading our direction. And I don't see any of the pearl clutching coming out of the UN when that was going on. So there was a little bit of anger about that. But a lot of the concern that came out initially before we knew the facts was that they were just kind of chucking drones in. Turns out they weren't. That building that got struck in 2 subsequent attacks, roughly about a day in difference, indicates that these drones are precision munitions. They're going where the Ukrainians are sending them. And that building there that you're showing on screen, Hal, at infotainment.com, is a building in which a number of ministries have offices, including their information warfare office. That cannot be stressed strongly enough. That is where not all, but where a good chunk of the Internet Research Agency, headed by the GRU.
Yeah, it's where Jimmy Dore gets his story points from.
That's exactly right. That's where Jimmy Dore.
That's the day Jimmy and Aaron Mate and Max Blumenthal and all those folks. That's the day their Slack went dead.
Yeah. So that is a 100% legitimate target because, make no doubt about it, that information warfare is essential to Russia's aims. So totally legit strike, and shows again the capacity. They did not use any Western technology that was given to them. That is a drone that they developed on their own. So,
and I'll show you this.
Another instance of Ukraine just showing what its capacity and its capabilities and its ingenuity and its willingness to think out of the box. Yeah. And Zelensky has indicated this ain't going to stop.
Right. And by the way, this is part of that story. There was this came out a couple days ago. China limits drone export because of Russia's use of because of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. Because Russia has been using, DJI drones and other stuff like prosumer and farm drones and stuff to attack Ukraine. But they've been doing that all along. They didn't start this until they realized that these drones are finding their way into the hands of people who don't support Putin. I think Russia asked for this. I think Russia said, send us, military drones. We'll get that through there, or we'll get some stuff through Iran or some other place that are for the military. But don't sell these on the open market because the locals are getting them and attaching stuff to them and messing with us. These fifth column or just disgruntled Russians or what have you. There's this, this is a story that popped up 2 days ago, almost, I would say everywhere that I was looking, about how China's just going to limit what drones they send. And that was in line with this attack and an attack similar to it. Let's grab another.
There's also been a video put out, which was widely circulated in kind of Russian-speaking web areas, internet sites and what have you, where it's in Russian saying, hey, Ukraine's Independence Day is on the 24th of August, which is in roughly about 3 weeks.
Right.
We might just send you a present on our Independence Day. And it showed a graphic of drones just spreading out throughout like 11 cities in Russia. And the Russians, of course, went absolutely ballistic. Some of them saying this is equivalent to 9/11 and the West is supporting it and these guys are terrorists. And again, the Ukraine response has been, we've been through a lot in the last year and a half. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah, we're allowed.
They have they've certainly developed a drone. The Ukrainians have been excellent at. I mean, kudos on them.
Well, I got to say, we do live in it.
System that's incredible.
Between AI, laser measurement, becoming so portable that it's in every phone, because LiDAR is on your phone right now. You have the ability to judge distance on a fine level that it can choose between 3 lenses and focus them on your phone. That's how keen it is on what you're carrying in your pocket.
Not to mention commercially available satellite imagery.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and drones and the details you could. Like James Bond, like this is stuff that was like ooh la la in the 80s and 90s.
If Q was at the Walmart,
right? He'd be like, I can't believe it. They've got everything. How did this get us all? What? How am I supposed to surprise him now?
I want to be able to hit a ship 200 miles away, and I want to have instant imaging. Well, James, if you
go to Target,
yeah, exactly.
I recommend if there's not a Best Buy in your area, Ukraine, like, do you have? There's an app on your phone called Amazon,
which is also not to downplay the ingenious and go-to and inventiveness of the Ukrainian people. They've really, they've taken stuff and made this.
And the Russians. Congratulations on your flying washing machines, guys. But
it's been an embarrassment because those drones do keep getting through. So, their air defenses have been shown to be a little lackluster.
Well, I think that's one of the things about
legitimate hit, though.
It's one of the things about bullies that don't keep their hands up. That's part of what this is. Like Russia thinks it's so. There's that scene in Rocky IV where Drago is like sticking his chin out and he's got his hands down like that, and he's doing that when he's fighting Apollo, and it's a little like he's like gross. It's something rednecks will recognize. It's how we introduce each other to it. But at one point he's got his hands down and he's doing like that. It's what gets him cut later when he's actually against somebody who's prepared to fight him, and that's kind of where Russia is. At one point, they got so big and strong in their own belief system that they thought they could do this with their hands down. And that's not how it turned out. We're well beyond 6 days. You are sitting in Kiev right now, and in relative air-conditioned comfort, I hope. And that is not the plan they had for the place at all. So let's grab another question before I get on another diatribe. But Johnny Million, what do we got?
Sure, yeah, this is from Jay Fernston. This is maybe along the same lines. Could you ask Philip if he thinks Ukraine will start droning the supports of the bridge that Russia uses to support Crimea?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's going to be drones that are going to be used against the Kerch Strait Bridge, but that bridge it's going to just continually be attacked. There are going to be drones. There are going to be missile strikes. They get the ATACMS, which, we could discuss in brief. It looks like there's an issue with the ATACMS missile system, which fires out of HIMARS, which we gave them quite a while ago, and that would extend the distance they can fire roughly about 250 miles. And that would allow the Ukrainians to fire deep into Crimea and even at some point hit at the bridge. No space in Crimea will be free from risk.
Sure.
So the bridge is whether it's a drone, whether it's a missile, it's going to continually be a target. And as Ukrainian forces push east, more and more of the peninsula is going to become a target. It's not looking good for Russia. The question is whether or not the patience in the West will extend, and we do need to give them those ATACMS. And there's argument that there's a German system that could be used similar to the ATACMS, and if we give that, if we give the ATACMS, which is what the TACM stand for, the Germans might give their equivalent system. It's going to cascade. It's going to get more and more. I, as I've said for a long time now, I do not see a way where Russia comes out of this a true victor. They might eke out some sort of Pyrrhic victory, but no way. They're not going to win this war.
Johnny Million, give us another.
Yeah, I think I've got one here from Mary P. Asked Phil if he knows anything about the Russians engaging with UFOs. It came out in a congressional hearing.
I mean, no. Look, Russian engagement with UFOs is a long-standing thing that the Russians have talked about since Tunguska. Back in 1919, where part of Siberia blew up. They love their UFO mythology in Russia. They love all kinds of mythology and conspiracies and stuff like that. I do not know what exactly during the UFO hearings, whether or not Russia's engagement. That must have been information that was gained in like that honeymoon period post 91, when they lifted all their archives and we could just go through everything. I don't think we're in any stage of cooperation where the Russian Federation, Putin's Russia, is giving us information about UFOs. So no, I'm sorry, I don't have any way to
let's take a break. We'll be back right after this with the happy ending and more questions for Phil at infotainmentwars.com, on WCPT Radio, WCPT820.com is our website. And then, of course, don't forget, Sexy Liberal, one show this year in October, LA, Saban Theater, me, John Fugelsang, Frangela, some super special guests. And then all next year, during the campaign, during the election year, we're going to be out on the road all the way to January 2025, where we're going to be in DC on the actual inauguration day doing a show. Don't disappoint us by making us have to counter-program Trump, you weirdos. We'll be back. I'll do it. Yeah.
Presidential campaigns is something I never really had a desire to cover.
Well, we're not covering it. We're just doing comedy. Yeah, well, we're doing it in all these different cities. I'm trying to get them to get us to some red cities, because they're going to call in bomb threats on the blue cities we're in, so who cares? The other thing is we're there to have a good time, so we're the least of anybody's worries. So we can have some lean over crowd, and I've got more experience with hecklers than anybody else on the bill, and so I look forward to it, not in a way that maybe they don't. But I think we also there's a ton of like untapped liberal pockets that don't get entertainment because people just assume where you're supposed to go,
Well, it's terrible. I'm gapping on his name, but in your line of work, isn't there the redneck comedian
Jeff Foxworthy?
No, not Jeff Foxworthy. Younger fella, Trey something around.
Oh yeah, I would say. Well, does Trey really?
But the point that
Trey Crowder, but it's just Trey.
Trey Crowder, but not Crowder. Different Crowder.
Yeah,
but
not Steven Crowder.
Point in that there are pockets of red everywhere. We are a tapestry.
Yeah, and that's okay. We should be able to we should be able to rib each other, as it were.
I am happy, you are happy. Let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny.
Oh my God!
Always be a funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky.
What?
Let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! Hurrah! So, needless to say, I don't know what you were Your what?
That is my bulova. That is my Ukrainian bulova. It is a mace but it is more a symbol of power for the old Cossack hetman.
It certainly is. For those on the radio,
pretty little
Phil
thing.
is holding up a medieval weapon, and the only word that I can find for it is want. Yeah. I mean, I have a a good number of things. I'll show you what I have after.
You will.
In terms of that, yes, I will. I'll show you my swinging weapon after after we're done with this segment. But there were a couple of, obviously we talked about this early in the beginning of the show, but the this week's happy ending is really about counting your blessings, because with the genuine tragedy that's happening in Ukraine and the genuine tragedy that's happening in China and elsewhere in the world, and Niger and Nigeria on the verge of civil war, or in civil war,
the flooding
I guess,
in Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, awful, tragic thing.
Yes.
Beautiful country, lovely people.
Exactly. Count your blessings, people, that your government and everyone around you is talking about a soft landing economically for you after COVID wiped everybody out a scant couple of years ago. So please keep your chin up as a matter of pride, as a matter of respect for those that are downstream from life's difficulties. That's my point. So count your blessings, and
you have a home, you have a roof over your head, presumably.
Yeah, start there, right? And we'll do
there
our best.
There are a lot of people in this country who are living in tents and who are living by the good graces of others, and thankfully there are people who are
can do that.
As awful as all the things that I have seen in my 25 years of covering wars. Is that as much as you see the awful, you also see the best of us. It's when things get really tested. So,
that's right.
It's count your blessings. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Here. Wholeheartedly support that.
There we go. And give a call, folks, if you would. Or beg your pardon. Give a chat, if you will. Leave a message in there, and Johnny Million will read them. Let's start with what we have.
I've got another one from, or not another one, but I've got a question from Easy E Network. Please ask Phil if Russia even has a Black Sea fleet left.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. It's not what it used to be. It is not able to maneuver in the Black Sea the way it used to be. It's obviously the flagship is at the bottom of the Black Sea, the Moskva.
The Moskva.
That's not good. And they're stuck at port because they can't come west. Because if they come west, they will encounter, all Ukraine's defenses. And there's anti-ship missile systems that were given to them by the Brits that have hardly been used since the beginning of this conflict. And they were emptied out the stockpiles, the Brits did. So there's a lot of defenses there. So their surface fleet is mainly bottlenecked up in the east of the Black Sea. Their submarine fleet is still able to get out into the open seas of the Black Sea and launch cruise missiles at various cities within Ukraine. So that's no joke. That's still a very serious threat. But it also does bring me back to a question that was asked earlier in the show, and I got caught up in another topic and I didn't address it, and that is reports that the blockade is being broken, that there are ships leaving ports in Ukraine in the Black Sea with grain shipments, and they are in defiance of Russia's threats leaving. And there's the first one was an Israeli ship, and again I think the person who asked the question is right. I think there's 4 shipments that have gone through. There were American planes in the air, but there were no escort ships. That's important to note. But it does look like the world is kind of saying, we don't care if you want to blockade. We are going to break the blockade, and calling Russia's bluff. So we'll see what happens with that. It's not like a stream of ships are going out and breaking the blockade. And as I say, it's a blockade kind of in name only, because they can't come. The Russian surface fleet can't come to that part of the Black Sea. But I can't see the Russians allowing that to happen forever. There has to be some sort of resolution of that, because if the blockade is still in place and it's being violated, that's going to be a big thing for them to deal with. So we'll see how that goes. But there have been breaches in that blockade. So
right. Johnny, we have another one.
Sure do. Do the Russian militia really fight for Ukraine? We've seen that American Nazis have gone there and joined. Could they be undermining Ukraine from the inside?
So the Russian Nazis, who are, well, I said Russian Nazis. Let me clarify that. There's a Russian element of anti-Putin guys, and they are very, very right wing. They do come from a place where fascism finds fertile ground. I argue that Ukraine is not a fertile ground for Nazis. And so even American Nazis who come over here will be disappointed, because this country, unlike Russia, is multi-ethnic, multicultural, and has had to negotiate, because
that whole Jewish president thing's got to be a bummer, I would imagine, as well.
That too, right? Sure.
Yeah, that'd be a kind of
the difference in the history here is that empires have come through here and they've left remnants of their cultures, and they've had to, because of these disparate cultures in Ukraine, they've had to agree with one another, and there is no one single Ukrainian identity. Unlike in Russia, where they expanded out as an empire from Moscow outwards, absorbing other ethnic groups, and so their multi-ethnic group is based on conquest. So you find more fertile ground for Nazis in Russia, I would argue, than you do here in Ukraine. Are there Nazis? Yes. They are not. They don't have power. They less than 2% of the vote in the last parliamentary election.
Right.
To those guys.
Charlottesville marchers. Right.
Yeah, exactly. They do not hold a seat in parliament. Any Nazis that come here are going to be woefully unwelcome. They may take them on because they're trigger pullers, but they're not going to find sustenance here. So when you hear Russia, again, let me just reiterate: when you hear Ukrainian nationalists, these are people who believe there should be a Ukrainian nation state. That's what they mean by Ukrainian nationalism.
Yeah.
So don't be sucked in by Russian.
Yeah, it's in many ways. We have the same problem that we have with the word patriotism over here, is that it's been so dirtied up, like the word freedom, by people who don't want freedom for anybody except their in group, and who only like America when it only works for one sector. And that's not patriotism either. The Constitution is built on the idea that this should be a governing system that's available to the world. Whereas the United States as a constitutional democracy was set to be an example for the world and self-governance, and is, quite frankly, it's spread because of the United States. But it's not, it's not meant to be the only one. Dictatorships are meant to always be the only one. That's the thing. That's their entire system, is wipe out everybody else. But our little group that's always been. Yeah, exactly. We've got 3 minutes left, so let's grab one more question.
Here.
No. Right. And it's getting increasingly unnatural around the world, so they get louder and in smaller groups. Social media has made them feel like they've got more friends than they actually do, which is why you see these people show up to support Trump, and there's like 9 people, and they're like, wait a minute, I thought everybody thought the way I do, because nobody told me to shut up anymore. So let's grab one more. We got a couple minutes left. Yeah, one more question.
Sure. Ed's 3D Tech asks, Ukraine's latest weapons in its war with Russia, 3D printed bombs?
3D printed drone bombs.
Right.
Yes, okay. I've heard of this. They are producing, in essence, the plastic frame that you then would put all the technology in, but it just speeds up the amount that but the Russians are doing the same thing. Drones have become, we're in a new stage in warfare. Drones are with us to stay.
The next ones are the walking drones. Once the walking drones show up, then
tractor drones are already out there taking wounded off of the battlefield.
Wow.
No, we crossed the Rubicon when it comes to drones.
Yeah.
And Randy Darrow is asking, please ask Phil about the children that were kidnapped. Do we have any updates on that?
Mm-hmm.
We are getting them slowly but surely, but not to the level that we need to. We need to put more pressure on Russia. There needs to be more pressure from the International Criminal Court. They are getting back maybe, and this is just off the top of my head, like a 10% kind of level, because we're looking at 700,000 children plus have been stolen from this country. It is ethnic cleansing, straight up ethnic cleansing, and it needs to be addressed. And it will be part of any peace deal. Will need to be the children will need to be considered. 700,000 have been stolen from their parents, taken away from their homes, and told that they are bad for being Ukrainian.
Right. And then brainwashed into being Russian, eventually being used as to kind of seed the generation.
Children,
yeah,
that's right. So in a year, they may forget, sort of thing. If they're like 4 years old, it's disgusting. It's awful, and it's a crime, and it's one of the biggest crimes that's been, that's been committed in this war.
Yeah,
it makes me furious. I know the guy who does these missions into Russia, into occupied territory, to get these kids back, and the stories the children are telling of how they are treated and potentially brainwashed makes your skin crawl. It's one of the most awful things about this war, and more reason why we need to support Ukraine. Don't give me the argument that there's this false equivalency. Ukraine is in the right here. They're the ones that are being attacked.
They were attacked. That's that. And Russia could end it tomorrow by leaving, as we have said before. So take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And we'll see you very soon. Thank you, Philip Bittner. Thanks, Johnny Million. And thanks to everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Woo!
All right, now, Hal, you've got to show Phil your hanging weapon.
Oh, yeah. I have 2 different versions. Hold on, real quick.
Oh, wow. I've heard of people like you.
So there's 2 basic.
We should both leave while he's...
Yeah, just come back. Hey, what happened? There's this one, which I find
that's pretty good.
Appropriate.
Mjolnir. You got Mjolnir there.
This is the good one. And then that's largely for show. This is the real one. This is an actual.
Hey.
And it weighs this is 25 pounds. So yeah, it's really excellent for working out. But it's also you can.
I have in my storage unit in the UK. I have a Scottish claymore.
Oh, nice!
It was made by the same guys that make all the swords for the Queen's Guard. So yeah, no, I got a whole bunch of. But
very impressive.
As with most of my life, everything's in storage and on hiatus until this war's over.
That's right.
So I can't show it to you.
Hal needs Mjolnir. I agree. So anyways, much love to you guys. Thanks so much. I will see you guys very soon.
Right. Everything relatively. You're back in Vegas?
Yes. So we'll schedule a call. I'll text you after and we'll schedule when we can talk, because we can do that tomorrow on the day off. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. Or Monday.
Excellent. Yep. Johnny Million.
Guys.
Love you, Johnny Million.
Hey, Johnny, all the best. All right.
Okay, bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye. And chat room, love you guys. Thank you guys so much. We couldn't do it without you. I appreciate you. And I get a little overwhelmed trying to juggle the tech of the show and make sure that it sounds okay. And I think we did all right this week. We actually I was able to, after some fidgety tweaking, messing around on the edges, fairly consistently when Phil was talking about some things, reference it with graphics, if you noticed. And I'm going to try and build more on that. And I do mean more on. And so that's piece by pieces. As we bring up news stories and the when I'm talking to you with Johnny Million on with me, and I want to show you guys an article while we're doing the radio show, or in the future when I'm doing my show and I have a guest on, like a morning show or whatever, and we're discussing something, if I can find it and pop it up next to us, I think it's really helpful and gives us all a chance at, to reference visually what we're talking about. Might expand the conversation a little bit better. I don't know. I'm just trying to do some good work. Just trying to do good work. God damn it. Anyways, love you guys. Take care. Turn off my virtual camera. We're good. Close that page and click that. And then, wait, what does this button do?